Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining this afternoon's Cuppa Club for Pedal and Post's equity offer. And we have Chris, Jamie, and Liz. Chris is founder and CEO of Pedal and Post, and Jamie and Liz are both directors. My name is Paul Pizzala, and I'm senior manager, investment manager at Ethex, working with Chris, Jamie, and Liz on Pedal and Post's offer. So before we get started, there's a little bit of housekeeping to do. And I'd like to let you know that the Cuppa Club is recorded and made available to watch via YouTube and other social channels. And we will edit this to a highlighted version for you. Please note that this is not a financial promotion. And if you do need financial advice, please talk to an independent financial advisor. So many of our regulars will know that Cuppa Club usually runs for 30 to 45 minutes. And it's a really fantastic opportunity to meet and ask questions of the directors and hear about why Pedal and Post is such an impactful organization, how the team aim to achieve their goals, what your investment is funding, and both understand, how the challenges are being turned into opportunities. So we really do like people to ask questions, so feel free to put them into the chat box and we will take those as we go along. So before the team introduce themselves, the equity on offer is to enable Pedal and Post to consolidate their position in Oxford and to start scaling their business into other UK cities, starting with Reading. And as an ultra low carbon logistics company with social and environmental benefits, Ethex is very pleased to host the offer. And please do refer to the offer document for more details after the webinar if there's anything else that you need to dive into. And of course, team here are very happy to take questions. So without any further ado, may I ask Chris, Jamie, and Liz to introduce themselves, and then we'll get stuck into the questions.
Well, yeah, I'll fire away. So my name is Christopher Benton, and I'm the CEO of Pedal and Post. And to give you a bit of background, so Pedal and Post was born sort of largely out of a passion of mine for bikes. Previously, I worked for 10 years in hospitality. I worked 2 jobs from sort of 7 a.m. till 3 a.m. for well over 8 months as a bit of a younger guy. I used to do event work on the weekends to save up for my sort of first cargo bike and first enterprise. It was a huge, great big Dutch cargo bike with a big mahogany box on the front that I used to serve coffee from. And used to do like university events and things. So the first business was Pedal and Pour, which is like a coffee-based business. And, I needed to kind of ferry a lot of stock back and forth. So I had a second cargo bike. And then some local businesses, saw what I was up to, riding around Oxford, and they inquired if, we could make deliveries for them. So it was a bakery in Summertown called Gatineau, and a veg box company, which was North Aston Organics. And we still work with them today. So from this, that's where Pedal and Post was born. And I believe some of the best businesses are kind of created out of solving a problem for others. So today, like 10 years later, Pedal and Post has now become a near sort of £500,000 business, employing 25 people into green, sustainable jobs. We operate the largest fleet of cargo bikes in a single city in the UK, with over 40 in our fleet now. And we've achieved some incredible sort of pioneering projects, I'm really proud of. A real highlight has been working with Baxter Healthcare, and it's delivering chemotherapy medications to NHS patients at the Churchill Hospital. Not only was this like a UK first, but the NHS sort of confirmed that we'd improved the service by nearly 50%. And it's projects like this that really highlight the kind of exciting potential and an opportunity of cargo bikes in cities. I've learned kind of an incredible amount through this sort of 10-year journey, and it certainly hasn't been plain sailing. We've survived COVID-19 the pandemic, and that was certainly tough. It's really tested our sort of business model, our team, and kind of my leadership to get us through it. However, kind of being a heavily sort of diversified business, it's very much saved us through this period and provided, quite a lot of resilience. But I think the COVID period has really seen the kind of logistics and delivery market kind of jump ahead, and it's probably ahead by about 5 years of where it was expecting to be. So we're seeing a huge demand for ultra low emission delivery services like ours to kind of tackle the challenges that cities are facing. We've got things like climate change, we've got congestion, we've got road danger. These issues are urgent ones to solve, and I think cargo bikes can fix a lot of them in one go. I certainly believe in the cargo bike revolution, and for me, Pedal and Post, it gives me the chance to ride a bike in one of the most beautiful cities in the UK, and to make a real positive contribution, to our city and its community. And I kind of look forward to doing that for many years to come. So that's me.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Chris. That's excellent. Really good to get that level of detail and hear your passion. Jamie, over to you.
Hi, yeah, my name's Jamie Hartzell. I'm one of the directors and the chair of Pedal and Post. I spent the first 20 years of my career making documentaries on environment and international development issues for the BBC and Channel 4 and NGOs like Friends of the Earth, and then started my own social business in the late 1990s. That was called the Ethical Property Company, and it provides office space exclusively for charities, campaign groups, social businesses, and other mission-driven organizations. And it's probably at that time one of the first businesses to set out to raise money from the general public and to deliver to its investors triple bottom line returns, so both financial, social, and environmental returns. And that's that's now got centres around the country, including the Old Music Hall in Oxford and up to all as far as Edinburgh. And actually, it operates in 4 countries: the UK, France, Belgium, and Australia, and employs over 200 people and manages something like 100 million or more in property assets. So it's a public company. So I've got experience of running and developing big companies. And also 12 years ago, I founded the platform that we're doing this crowdfund through today, Ethex, and that's hosting our share offer. As I really believe that there was an importance in giving individuals the opportunity to invest into mission-driven businesses. And there wasn't really the way to do that until Ethex came along. I'm really pleased to see that it's really flourishing still today. And I stepped back from that a few years ago, but I think Ethex raised something like 100 million now for social business, or perhaps more. And then more recently, I've been looking to offer my skills to social businesses and charities as a non-executive director or trustee. And usually as chair, I've sort of chaired about 10 or 12 different organizations over the years now. Perhaps the best known is the fair trade company Divine Chocolate, which I chaired for 6 years. Also Zaytoon, which imports olive oil from Palestine, I chaired for 7 years. I also chaired Spare Snacks, which was a startup making fruit crisps from waste apples, and took it through its first fundraise on a crowdfunding platform. And I've also been a trustee of lots of charities and campaign groups such as Positive Money, Sustainable Restaurants Association, Student Hubs, Community Action Groups Oxfordshire, and several more. And currently I'm chairing the Real Farming Trust that organises the Oxford Real Farming Conference. I'm also director of Oxfordshire Livable Streets, which campaigns for traffic reduction measures in Oxfordshire and promotes cycling and walking. So that gives me quite an insight into a lot of the issues that Pedal and Post is dealing with, and some of the fast moving transport policy issues, because Oxford is really quite a long way ahead on transport policy. And my overall firm belief is that business has a central role to play in tackling social and environmental issues we face, and they can do that successfully as delivering strong financial returns as well. And I see Pedal and Post as really a brilliant opportunity to carry forward on that mission. Brilliant,
excellent. Thank you, Jamie, for that very very rich tapestry of your experience and successes to date. And turning to Liz.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. I'm in a co-working space in Farringdon at the moment. My name's Liz Sawyer, and I'm a non-executive director of Pedal and Post. My story is very different from Jamie's. My eyes were open to the potential of cargo bikes 4 years ago when I had my second baby. My family and I live on the Botley Road, which, as any of you who live in Oxford will know, suffers from some of the worst congestion in the city. And I needed to find a way to get my children from A to B within a predictable time frame without getting stuck in traffic, whether that was to school or to doctor's appointments or to playgroups or wherever. And one day I saw another lady with a Dutch style cargo bike with 4 little girls in it, all chatting away happily. And I realized that that was the solution. I could ride a bike, because I'd used one when I was a student and in my 20s, but I don't think of myself in particular as a cyclist. Nevertheless, I got a very similar bike to that lady's with a special suspension bracket on it to put the baby car seat in. And I am not lying when I say that that was a life-changing decision. Not only could I plan my days effectively and efficiently, but suddenly actually getting the children around the city became a liberating and empowering experience. We could make our journeys away from cars, through parks, quiet streets. The children loved it, and I didn't need to worry about them being exposed to dangerous levels of air pollution by sitting for long periods in a vehicle. So getting a cargo bike not only took away all the stress of that process, but it actually added many intangible benefits that I had not expected to find. Then one evening in early lockdown, I listened to an online lecture about businesses in Oxford using cargo bikes for deliveries. Chris was one of the speakers, and his knowledge of the sector and his work ethic and his commitment impressed me so much that I contacted him the following week to ask if I could invest in the company. I realized straight away that Pedal and Post was having an immediate impact on making the city that I'd lived in for 20 years and in which I'm raising my children better every day by reducing the number of vans on the streets and making the roads safer and reducing pollution. So now, 4 years later, I'm qualifying as a lawyer, and I'm working to specialize in the planning and environmental law sector, which is why I'm here in London, about to go down to the Inns of Court to a seminar run by a specialist chambers. So the broader national picture of planning and environmental challenges, including housing crisis, infrastructure investment, energy resilience, all of these issues all tie into Pedal and Post's mission. So whether we're thinking in terms of the UK's legal commitment to reach net zero by 2050, or if we're looking more regionally at the legal obligations that local authorities are under to hit air quality targets, it all becomes very clear that cargo bike deliveries are essential for solving those problems, and that the industry is expanding very fast as well. So that's me.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thanks, Liz. Really good to kind of get that sort of policy legal overarching framework as well, to understand that as a driver for this type of solution to problems that we're facing. So coming into questions now, Pedal and Post mission is to cut carbon emissions, air pollution and inner city congestion by delivering parcels in UK cities using ultra low emission cargo bikes. I've read that straight off the script. Chris, you started the business, as you said, and have been running it for 10 years now. Can you tell us what gives Pedal and Post a competitive advantage against the larger national carriers, and what protects it from smaller competitors? In other words, what is your value proposition?
Yeah, so we definitely work sort of with national parcel carriers, as opposed to against them maybe. So we're the first company doing cycle logistics to work with DPD in the UK. We also work with Yodel, and we can also announce today that we'll be doing a trial with a third parcel carrier called Every this year to provide kind of last mile delivery solution in Oxford. That helps solve kind of a number of problems for them and kind of decarbonizes their deliveries. Sort of making deliveries in cities by van has become sort of much harder. So as government policies are being introduced, like traffic restrictions, you've got clean air zones, low traffic neighborhoods, the more traditional models are having issues. And, customers are also demanding that, parcels are on time, they're reliable, and it's also cost effective as well, because no one really wants to pay delivery fees if they can help it. So, and cargo bikes help achieve this. And from DPD's own data, it shows that we're delivering about 25 to 30% faster, versus vans, which is about sort of, I think we're delivering around 20, 25 parcels an hour in some cases. We can also sort of hire from a much wider employment pool, as our riders don't require a driving license. So, it enables those kind of people to be involved in the logistics sector. And as cargo bikes are so much more cost effective than vans to operate, we can offer, higher wages, and, we're a London living wage like business. And we find our employee retention is much higher. So it saves us on things like training costs. And it's meaning we can provide kind of a better delivery experience at the door for customers, because these are much more sort of skilled people who've been doing it for, a long time. And this is kind of where, a lot of our value proposition is. However, sort of no one parcel carrier working alone could really achieve this. And, the fact we work with a huge diversified array of clients, from kind of 140 local clients, where we provide sort of same day point-to-point delivery services. We work with Riverford on multi-drop sort of veg box routes in the city. We work with the NHS on medical deliveries, and now sort of 3 big national parcel carriers. And that's all how we kind of contribute to our overheads of operating, a local depot, just on the outskirts of Oxford. And I think that's why a big national would kind of, struggle to do this independently. I was in a meeting with one of the board of directors for a national parcel carrier recently, and I think they kind of describe it really well. They said, look, we've tried to operate cargo bikes ourselves, and it's not really what we do best, which is why we're coming to businesses like Pedal and Post, who operate cargo bikes, kind of experts in the field, for our kind of the last mile of delivery, on our behalf. That's what we do best. Most parcel carriers are also aware that the 2030 diesel and petrol ban is coming. So traditional parcel carriers that have large out of town depots, are going to struggle a little bit, whereas Pedal and Post can offer a local depot whilst generating those kind of economies of scale from working with those sort of, several different companies, and offer a wide kind of range of delivery services. I'd say this also applies to kind of smaller competitors. We do have like a small competitor in Oxford now. However, our scale, our client list, and the kind of infrastructure, we've got in place are kind of real competitive barriers, for them. I think we're of a size now where we have our own in-house mechanics and workshop, providing that sort of support and breakdown recovery services. And this isn't something, smaller operators can really afford to do. So it's kind of how we have a superior offering. We provide sort of a more reliable and higher quality service that's kind of difficult to rival. We're also set to receive another kind of announcement for today, is around £170,000 fund from UK Innovate, which is part of an EU project. So it's 70% funded, and we are, required to provide the other 30%. To deliver a second micro consolidation hub in Oxford, testing the kind of transfer of goods from HGVs to cargo bikes. So this is with like clients like Riverford, who want to drop off sort of pallet loads, and then we transfer and load up. And that's also what this crowdfunder is going to hopefully unlock. So yeah, that kind of covers the question.
Exciting times ahead, and thank you very much for making those 2 announcements here today as well, Chris. Appreciate that. I mean, it's a dynamic and moving industry, and it's great to kind of hear that, coming through in this webinar. So I'm going to turn to Jamie. Jamie, you sort of like painted a picture of your career as a documentary maker and a serial social entrepreneur, having managed companies like the Ethical Property Company through their growth phases. And I find it's the qualities and characteristics of an organization that really make it successful. So what is it about Pedal and Post and Chris and his team that have attracted you to be the chairman and to advise Chris on this offer? You're on mute, Jamie. You're on mute.
So yes, chair rather than chairman, perhaps, but yes, indeed. I mean, I think, one attraction for me is that I feel that I can add a lot of value to the business. As you say, I've got a lot of corporate finance experience. I'm quite used to dealing with shareholders, which is a new experience for Chris. The Ethical Property Company had 1,500 shareholders, for example. and also in building a business. I think stepping out into a new city or a new territory is a big step for any business, and it does lead to a big shift. And I sort of have an understanding that I can support Chris on, and I know what it is to do that, not only with ethical property, but Divine operated not actually in 2 cities, but in 2 countries. Half our income came from the USA. And there's, complexities to managing across 2 locations like that, which need a bit of foresight and input that I think I can give. But also, I'm just keen to take on the role because I see Pedal & Post as having a really strong team, a really high social environmental impact, and great growth prospects. If you think the online delivery market is growing at around 5% a year as we do more and more of our shopping online. And then on top of that, even with that market growing, the sustainability element within that market is growing even more so, because these delivery companies are increasingly looking for carbon neutral solutions. And even if they don't want to go down the sustainability route, they're going to be forced to do that by the introduction of low traffic neighborhoods, zero emission zones, and all these other traffic restrictions that are coming in, where Oxford's really leading the way. But we're seeing many other cities going down the same route, including very major cities like Birmingham. Another attraction is, you've got all those environmental benefits of carbon emissions, air pollution, reduced congestion, and they're kind of hardwired into the business. As Pedal & Post grows, it's not a compromise between doing good and doing well. It's not like we have to offer cheaper rents, which is going to cut the financial profits in order to benefit the charities that might move into a property company. It's like, if the business grows, the more financially successful it is, the better that is for society. And so I think that's very attractive. And also, I think, Chris is a very capable entrepreneur. He's totally dedicated to the business. He's just flat out just thinking Pedal & Post all the time. And he's learned so much in the 10 years since he first set the company up, which I think really sets him ahead a lot of his competitors, that he got such an early start, and he's learned so much in that time. But at the same time, he's very open to new ideas and listening to others. And, that's very encouraging to see in somebody who's also very determined. And together with Liz, I think we've got a really strong board of directors for the business. We all get on well. We each bring different skills to the business. We have our own perspectives, and we really have some lively and creative discussions, about how to take things forward, which is great fun to be involved with. What's more, we all live 10 minutes from the depot, so we can just quickly meet at short notice. And I think as the company grows, we're going to want to expand the board and bring in new skills. But for where we are right now, I think it's a really strong board of directors.
Brilliant. That's an excellent answer. Thanks so much, Jamie. And then sort of turning to the question of governance, Liz. I mean, obviously, it's very important for several reasons, i.e. having a board that acts as a check and balance and providing strategic guidance, as Jamie was talking about. Can you tell me a little bit about how you envisage the board providing governance for the team at Pedal & Post as it consolidates and expands into Reading and elsewhere?
Yeah, absolutely. So to carry on from what Jamie was saying, both he and I actually live near Pedal & Post depot. So what this does is gives us a big advantage, because we're a very agile and responsive board. We're in touch, the 3 of us are in touch every day, virtually anyway, via WhatsApp and email. So if we identify something that we want to discuss, we can all actually meet up within a day or 2. And if we can't reach a quick decision about it virtually, and we decide that it's better off for us to meet and discuss it in person, then we can do that within 24 hours. Now, more formally though, we do have quarterly meetings, and that's where the really kind of structured analysis happens. So that's our analysis of how the company's been getting on. This is the forum for looking at the company's performance, setting targets, assessing the performance of the company against its KPIs and against benchmarks. So looking both backwards over the last quarter, have we done what we said we were going to do, or what we thought we were going to be able to do, and also forwards towards identifying and reaching future goals. So I think we're a very strong board because we've got this balance of agility on the one hand, but also structure for longer term planning on the other. And it allows the business to benefit then from this long-term strategy, and at the same time be able to take advantage of opportunities that arise as they do in such a rapidly growing area as this. So the role of the board, our main role is obviously to support Chris, but also to challenge him and ensure that decisions that have to be made have been considered in the round, as it were, and from different perspectives, but also within appropriate timeframes. As you will have picked up from today, Chris's knowledge of the industry is second to none, but Jamie and I can bring a broader perspective. Because we both have very different skills and experience, and we're not involved with running the business day to day as Chris is. Jamie's financial experience and skills with ethical companies obviously speak for itself, but I can make three other different contributions as well. So firstly is the ability to critically analyze opportunities and problems that come up from different standpoints. So by training and education and career before this, I'm a classicist, and my DPhil was interdisciplinary. So it means I'm very comfortable working with ambiguity and with different types of information. So I'm a very flexible thinker. And secondly, as comes across, I'm very passionate about what cargo bikes can achieve because I've experienced it. And I believe in Chris and in his vision and in his capability as an entrepreneur and as a businessman. And thirdly, as I mentioned, I'll be qualifying as a lawyer shortly, so I'm going to have this additional practical skill set to add. And also, just to recap what Jamie mentioned, it's also our role as the board to identify expertise that will actually help the business grow further, and especially when we move into Reading, and actually to bring in additional board members to provide the expertise that we'll identify. Yeah,
that's brilliant. It's really great to hear that level of clarity in terms of how you're helping to guide Chris and structure the business. I do have a bit of a mea culpa actually, because normally we get questions coming through from the audience, but for some reason today, and I'm talking to the Ethex symbol that you might see there, which is Julie Dunn in the background, who helps to sort of host these webinars for us. So normally I would be weaving audience questions into the interview, but unfortunately I can't.
I think we've got them, Paul. I mean, I can.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, brilliant.
Should we take them ourselves?
Well, if you kind of grab them as you want to, so I'm opening the opportunity up for you. If there's anything in there that you really want to take, then please take it. We can do that now.
There's plenty of them.
Oh, great. Well, why don't we go? Why don't we do that?
Well, a little bit of just taking a sort of extended chairing responsibility here, Paul, but there you go. A sort of natural role. So, Chris, Ivor's asking, expansion into Reading. Oxford has a significant cycling culture and lots of narrow streets, which favour cargo bike solutions over van-based ones, as we know. But how will Pedal and Post adapt its approach when it comes to operating in Reading?
I think it's a good question, and I think when you explore a new city, I think networking and working with the groups that are already there is going to be a real advantage. We had a meeting yesterday with the cycle campaign group from there, who highlighted a number of things, as did a number of councillors who were quite supportive of the move as well. I think a lot of sort of councils and a lot of cities kind of want to see businesses like ours setting up there. Because again, we kind of have a lot of environmental and societal positives. Whether people use our services or not, you still get to experience clean air, safer roads, less congested streets. I believe Reading is kind of expanding its sort of cycle network, and it is improving. But we kind of sit very much towards the end of confident, professionally trained cycle couriers. We've been doing it for 10 years, and 10 years ago in Oxford, there was kind of little cycle infrastructure to really show, although we're kind of perceived as a cycling city. So we're kind of one of those enterprises that will kind of be there whether the cycle infrastructure is there or not, and we'll adapt to it. But I think there's such a significant efficiency gain with using cargo bikes, that simply having further cycle infrastructure just improves on those efficiencies over vans. So yeah, I'm looking forward to Reading.
Great. And if I pop another one in then, so from Christopher Hall, given the size of pedal and post cargo bikes, does that limit you to very small special packages and thus a good but small regional niche? And are you prevented from delivering large packages?
Is a very good question. This is kind of what's perceived with cargo bikes, that we're much smaller, we can't take what vans can, but it's largely not the case. A lot of the stuff we do with national parcel carriers, I think the average Amazon parcel is 2 kilograms, for instance, which is cargo bikes are more than capable of doing kind of the vast majority of deliveries in cities. I believe it's somewhere between, there's kind of different studies and different estimates on this, but it's around sort of 30 to 50% of all deliveries that come into a city is what cargo bikes can handle. What we're also working on, though, is developing our own sort of hardware. So we're working on essentially a semi-trailer for our larger e-trikes, and this should expand. We want to kind of break into that larger parcel market as well. So we've got a target to try and break into about 10% of it. And that's what these kind of semi-trailers are going to help enable. They are much bigger and much longer, but they're hopefully going to help us take advantage of some of the efficiencies from the HGV world as well. If we have a breakdown, we can quite easily sub in a different bike to the front. We don't have to touch the cargo. And kind of lots of little advantages and efficiency gains like this. So yeah, we're looking forward to that kind of project, because it's another sort of pioneering and an innovative project that we're working on. So we're quite a small cog in a very big supply chain machine, but we're certainly having an impact, I think.
Jamie, why don't you take another couple more questions, if that's okay? And then
Sure.
Brilliant, thank you.
You haven't got them yet. Okay. Well, there's another one on sort of valuation and debt versus equity, but I think we're coming on to that in a bit. So if we'd sort of come back to that maybe. But Simon is asking, so you're currently warehousing in shipping containers, which is a fantastic idea, but is there enough capacity on the depot, and how do you envisage that working in Reading going forward? And can you see scope for making storage more efficient, in and out document and item retrieval? And is there scope then for moving on to both pickup and delivery? In other words, first mile as well as last mile, as it's technically called in the business, which is mostly doing last mile at the moment.
Yeah, that's a brilliant question, and some really good logistics knowledge there as well. So yes, I mean, the advantage of using shipping containers is if a particular setup doesn't work very well, then we can just pick them up and move them around. And certainly the kind of ergonomics in our depot will progressively need improving. We've looked at, flagship depots for DPD that's up in Bicester at the moment, and how they kind of arrange their depot, where they have parcels inputting, and how they, get them out efficiently to the vans to load up. We're taking a lot of kind of inspiration from there. And, we would have plans to have kind of loading bay doors in shipping containers, how we arrange all the bikes to make it more efficient and kind of process parcels quicker. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of that. I think one of the number one kind of pain point is finding, city centre depots. So it's certainly going to be something where we're working on, when we expand to Reading. We've got a brief prepared, so we know what we're looking for, and this is because we're seeking the second depot in Oxford at the moment, working with the Oxfordshire County Council, and as part of the EU Green Log project. So we're looking at more flexible places as well, so things like car parks, multi-storey car parks, land that isn't being used, or brownfield sites, anything that's flexible that we can put shipping containers into, we can kind of work out of. So our models are at least, a lot more flexible than, some would be.
I think I'd sort of like to add as well, like, as I get to know the business better and better, delivering 10,000 packages a day is a massive logistical challenge, and it really calls for a high degree of organization. And that really as the company grows, there are huge opportunities for maximizing efficiency and profitability by how you structure the logistics and how you work with the national courier companies. And if you can just get a rider to do 110 drops a day instead of 100, you've increased your profitability by 10%. And you know, as Chris starts to work with more and more courier companies who've all got their own individual ways of doing that, I think there could be great potential for really making a major breakthrough in efficiency by getting them all to work together on our basis rather than on their basis going forward. So it's very exciting. I enjoy those kind of, you know, it's a bit like doing Sudoku or something, isn't it? It's a massively complicated challenge. It has this huge business impact if you succeed.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So Jamie, so we're sort of coming towards the end. So what I'd like to do, I'll
Got a lot of
asked,
questions here.
sorry,
There's 13 questions.
How many?
13 unanswered questions.
13. Liz has got her hand up.
Yeah, there have been a couple of questions that are about your about the riders, Chris. So if you could very quickly answer those. One, are the riders employed? Two, how are you not Deliveroo? And three, what are you going to happen? What are you going to do when your riders get too old to ride again at 40? Can I just say, electric bikes, I have them. I'm not a big person, I'm not a strong person, but an electric bike is an absolute life-changing experience. You do not need to be phenomenally fit and strong to use and control an electric bike. They are brilliant. Anyway, Chris, those two questions, are your riders employees and how are you not Deliveroo?
Yeah, this is questions we get quite a lot as well. So we distance ourselves from the gig economy, you know, as much as possible. And, you know, we employ our team into, you know, living wage jobs. So we pay the London living wage at the moment. And we're also experimenting with salaried employees now as well. So this also means that, you know, we're liable for those couriers. So it's in our best interest as a company to make sure, you know, they're abiding by the highway code, making sure they're safe on the roads, they're properly trained and professionally trained. Only around 50% of all of the trainees pass our training course to make sure they're going to be, you know, safe out and about. And, you know, as part of this, our fleet is, you know, GPS tracked, all the bikes are branded. They actually have license plates as well, but that was more for maintenance reasons. So we can kind of log and work around that. So we have this accountability in our communities. So any one member of the public can pick up the phone and say, look, I've had either this problem. And it creates that kind of feedback loop for us to be, you know, constantly improving. We've got a very diverse age range here. And again, it's in our best interest as a company to make the job as easy as possible. So electric assist technology has come on leaps and bounds, you know, even within the last sort of 2 or 3 years. We've seen huge improvements. So for anyone who might not be familiar with e-bikes, in the UK, they're called Pedalex. So they have to be electrically assisted. So you have to be pedaling for the bike to provide electrical assistance. They have limits on the power. So it's a 250 watt motor. And this has meant we've had to really innovate in this sector because you're limited by power and we're limited to 15.5 miles an hour as well. We have to use very lightweight materials. We're experimenting with whether we use moped parts or, you know, bicycle components, seeing which ones are more reliable. So there's a whole bunch of kind of research and development that goes into this, you know, kind of just delivering your package that last mile into the city by bike. But yeah, this has helped us enable, again, widening our employment pool. So we've got people in their, you know, 40s and 50s still working with us now. And, you know, they really enjoy cycling around the city. I don't think I'd struggle to get them off the bikes nowadays, I think.
Brilliant. That's an excellent answer. So what I'm going to suggest we do is I'm going to ask a final question to Chris and Jamie. In the background, we can collate all the questions, so don't feel as if we won't get back to you. There will be an opportunity for Chris and his team to answer questions, so nobody needs to feel as if they're being left out. But keen to stick to the 45 minutes. So question for Chris and Jamie about the risk and return of pedal and post. I think the impacts really speak for themselves, actually. And you're aiming for an exit in 5 to 7 years via a trade sale to a national delivery company. And, you know, this is how you calculate the return to investors based on a multiple of turnover. And we know it's an art and a science, of course, could be upside to that. So can you tell us, what you see as the risks of executing within this time frame? Because ideally people don't want their money to be locked up for longer, and why is the internal rate of return you're predicting a reasonable return? So maybe Jamie, you can kick off on that one.
Okay. Cargo bike deliveries, it's a very new area of business, and it's a very fast growing sector. And there's lots of cargo bike companies springing up all around the country, but I think only the best will survive on the long term. And at some point, and we think in around 5 to 7 years' time, the big companies will start to buy up the winners, and the market will then start to consolidate, because it's the only way really that it can effectively achieve the national coverage that's required. If you think like ASOS wants to see cargo bike deliveries, it's going to get very complicated for it if it has to deal with 50 different cargo bike providers in order to get all the coverage it needs to be. And the fewer it can deal with, the better. So if the market doesn't consolidate itself, ASOS may well try and make their own entry. And so we've based our financial forecasts on securing market share rather than just the idea of straight line growth, because we're currently only 2% of the Oxford market, but as we grow that and get to more of a bigger share of the local market, will become much more attractive to purchasers. As Chris says, there's a possibility of getting to a third to a half of the overall deliveries market over time. I was very encouraged to discover quite early on that Chris was very open to the idea of selling the business, because that can often be a barrier for a founder, but it means that we can factor that into our business model and the idea of going for a sale all the way from the outset. And we're always thinking about it because we're in conversations with there's quite a good spirit of cooperation between the cargo bike companies, but we're kind of picking and choosing who we want to be talking to and working with more closely, to larger ones than us, and then there's a lot of smaller ones, and how we play that. And the same applies with the national couriers as well, really. We can keep an eye on what they're doing and how they're thinking about it. I think Chris wants to tell you a bit about some of the things they've been up to in a second in terms of buying and selling businesses. And then I think these trade sales can be quite difficult and complicated negotiations. And obviously, the sale price we achieve determines the return we give to shareholders in the end. That's how it's based on that ultimate sale price to give the annual rate of return. And we've estimated that growth based on the turnover of the business. So we might well choose to enlist the services of a specialist advisory service. I've talked to a few of these in the past. There's quite a few people in the area who I know who are specialists in this and can really look to maximize value. But Chris, did you want to add anything about the courier companies, and any thoughts on this yourself?
Yeah, so it's very much what you were alluding to. So we're in a very sort of highly fragmented market. So no one cargo bike service has a national coverage yet, and I believe the end play of some of these larger sort of enterprises is to go and circumnavigate around the national parcel carriers and go direct to retailers like ASOS, so they can provide that kind of green solution and guarantee it. So a lot of larger cargo bike companies, they're kind of targeting much bigger cities like the London, Birmingham, Bristol, Manchester, whereas we kind of see us as operating in the smaller cities. These are kind of cities that these companies are not really going to want to compete in. It's going to look much more attractive as a merger and acquisition and sale of the business, and it will provide that kind of coverage for them as well. We've seen in the industry that it is starting to consolidate a little bit. So we've seen City Sprint, one of the biggest same-day carrier, has recently been bought up. Stuart and also Absolutely Couriers in London were also bought up by the national parcel carrier DPD. So we're kind of positioning ourselves, either to be, quite attractive to those kind of companies, or equally, a London-based company who's looking to break out into the wider sort of southeast and have that kind of coverage. So yeah, that's kind of where we see ourselves, in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. So different ways of exiting depending on how the market how the market grows, whether it's a DPD or whether it's a larger regional carrier that's looking to move into the smaller cities. So
Paul, we got tons of questions here, and Julie's suggesting that maybe we might carry on just for a couple of minutes to answer a few more questions before we.
Absolutely, no, please be my guest. That sounds fantastic. Let's do that.
Yeah, okay. Let me try and sort of put them together a bit. There's some questions about the growth. Like how do we see growth beyond Reading, and is there a danger of getting too big and things become too hard to manage, and then potentially losing the values of the business? It's sort of putting three questions together there. I mean, I could just sort of say, I mean, we've deliberately chosen Reading because it's in easy reach of Oxford. It's a similar sized town. It doesn't have an courier company currently. And we already sort of have quite good connections to it and understanding of it. A lot of us have spent time in Reading, and we feel then that we can, I think, as I see it as chair, if we can break the back of operating in two cities, that is really the big step. It's like, and then it's almost like sort of having your second child, isn't it? But then after that, then it gets easier, really. Well, the child analogy doesn't really work, I don't think. Once you've got to two, the idea of getting to 3 and 4 is becomes easier and more manageable, because you can see the complexity involved. And I think we need to make that step and then look at other cities. But the intention has always been to go to similar sort of as Chris says, sort of large market towns or small cities like Swindon would be another prospect, which is not so far from us. And I think we could sort of expand in that way. I think in a way, as it gets bigger, I think the business becomes more manageable efficiently, because you do get those benefits that I was saying earlier about being able to do sort of consolidated drops. It's so crucial. If one rider does 100 drops in a day or 120, it makes such a big difference. When you've got more concentration and size of packages, then it's much easier to do that. And I think the values are kind of baked into the business, really. I don't think they're gonna go, and there's no compromise really between delivering the benefits and making the money, which is often the challenges that social businesses find as they grow. We're not really faced with that challenge. Well, in a smaller way we are, but yes, but not in a fundamental way. So I've asked and covered that question. Does anyone want to add anything on that?
Liz, have you got some? No, okay.
Okay, and let me ask something else here. Are cities too dangerous? Are other cities too dangerous for drivers, do you think, Chris? Is that we're going to have a problem with driver safety in some other cities?
I think it's something to always bear in mind. Obviously, we being set up in Oxford, you don't really expect those kinds of issues. But I think it's just making sure you take kind of precautions. I mean, having GPS tracking on the bikes, we've got dash cams on a lot of the e-trikes now as well, that are kind of there to support with, any accidents and, any sort of theft opportunities, if you like. But you probably have more problems if you're in, much larger cities like London and Birmingham, but we haven't really had any issues in Oxford so far. I mean, touch wood in the 10 years. But it's always something that you do have to bear in mind, because, we do sort of have lone working, but, we have walkie-talkie systems and kind of safety measures put in place. So, yeah.
Okay, Liz.
Let's turn that around a little bit, Chris. And I've got a lot of background noise here. But can you say a little bit more about the project that you did for improving road safety? Do you remember the one that I'm talking about, with the cameras for catching near misses and identifying dangerous spots? Because this has a very broad social impact, far beyond just bikes, but it's something that riders and bike riders are particularly good at identifying and then conglomerating that knowledge. Could you just speak about that for a moment, please?
Yeah, so we were part of a project working with a company called OnSea, which is they have dash cams that they would put onto the front of bikes, and riders just push the button and it would store the footage and it would automatically upload to a dashboard for us. But what it would also do is plot all of that data onto a map, And it was something that, us as a service can then sort of gather that kind of, level of data, because we've done over 1 million miles on Oxford's roads. So we reach pretty much all corners. So if there's particular hotspots of incidents, this is something that we see as a potential sort of scope to then work with, councils and kind of move towards and support that kind of active travel movement to highlight sort of dangerous areas.
And could you give a little, just briefly, Chris, explanation, sort of a little bit about detail of how it works? Like, do riders do 2 rounds per day? How does the sort of software side of it work? Do you have to scan parcels from different carriers? And are you paid by the parcel or by the hour, or like just a little bit of sense, a little bit of the logistics? Maybe not in too much detail, but a couple of minutes.
Yeah, a bit of a day to day in like the average courier's sort of experiences. So our first parcel carrier will come in at around sort of 9 o'clock. They'll drop off 600 to 800 parcels into our delivery hub. We will then scan those and load them, and each route has about 100, 120 stops on it. And this is about comparable to what a van will achieve in kind of an 8-hour period. So we do deal with, a lot of sort of smaller items compared to the much larger items that, an electric vehicle will deal with. And basically those riders will load up the e-trikes and they will disappear across the city for the whole day. A lot of the local clients we work with will call up, and some of our medical clients will call up through the day. So we provide kind of a same day ad hoc service. So we have riders coming and going all over the city. And because they're sort of GPS tracked and we've got kind of an advanced courier software system that we use, we can do dispatching and controlling for all of that. And then we have a lot of our sort of medical riders. So they will head out on kind of fixed days, providing, services for the NHS. We do kind of, alongside our chemotherapy sort of delivery work we also work with moving sort of surgical equipment and also robotic arms for theatres, which is one of the kind of projects that was quite exciting to do and deliver. So going back to the parcel carriers, so we get paid per parcel as a company, but we pay all of our employees hourly. So that's basically, that provides motivation for us as a company to find all of those kind of efficiencies and innovations to say, well, okay, well, if we can, one of the things we've worked on with the back of our e-trikes, for instance, is, we access them 100 times a day. So instead of manual keys, we now have combination locks, and instead of little twisty handles, we have proper handles. So in wet weather, they couldn't really get in. So it's all these kind of little incremental sort of gains that is where kind of our 10 years of experience come in, making this job sort of as easy and reliable as possible.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, I think that's a fantastic note to end on, actually, because, really what it highlights to me is you don't pick up that level of detail overnight. That is definitely a journey to be able to get into that level of detail in terms of not only thinking about the business model design, but how you create those efficiencies. And one of the things that really struck me, Chris, about your offer and is the branding and the freshness of the brand and the look of the brand and the feel of the brand. And there you go. And I'm sort of I'm resonating with you in blue here. So it just has a great feel to it, in my opinion. So summary and call to action from Chris, if you like. We're sort of just over a week into the raise. It's going really well. I think we're over 21% now, which is fantastic. Summary call to action from Chris, and then we'll get into the outros, and over to you.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a third sort of big announcement, I think, for the crowdfunder is we've just broken the 100K mark as of this morning, which is a huge sort of milestone to meet. So the support for this has kind of been overwhelming and it's just been brilliant. But it's kind of a call to action. So, I believe in the cargo bike revolution in cities, and, I'm passionate to change the status quo. Deliveries in cities are kind of crying out to go ultra low emission. And, as part of our pitch deck, we highlighted sort of 9 societal and environmental positives. And I think, if you walked into your doctors and they said they can cure 9 issues with 1 magical pill, you'd probably call that a bit of a miracle. So I'm hoping that that's kind of what businesses like ours, provide. And it's such a rapidly growing market, and it's just so exciting not only to be a part of this change, but also seeing what's happening in the wider community that we're also inspiring. So we're seeing, everything from cargo bikes from the family school run to, local businesses taking them up, and trades as well. So I think we have a great opportunity, with our wealth of experience, to sort of bring people on this journey with us by owning a piece of Pedal and Post. And I think many people not only see this as kind of an investment opportunity, but genuinely want to see this change happen in their cities and communities too. So yeah, I kind of look forward to expanding what we do, scaling the business up, and I get to cycle in one of the most beautiful cities in the UK still. And again, I hope I get to do that for many years to come yet.
Brilliant. That's awesome. So offer is open to the 1st of June 2023. I know you guys you're doing a lot of events around Oxford and elsewhere. I think the next event is on the 11th of May. So look out for that. I'm sure we'll send out some notifications to everybody on this call. And of course, encourage you to look at the offer and see how it's progressing on Ethex's website, and to take a look at Chris's Pedal and Post website too. So want to say thank you once again for your time, and just remains for Pedal and Post to say goodbye to the audience.
Thank you very much. And if you do have more detailed questions, please do get in touch with us directly or via Ethex, and we'd be very happy to chat to anyone who wants a bit more detail, or to meet face to face or online to answer any more detailed questions. And there's 1 or 2 further questions I think we'll get back to you on in the chat, like should we be a cooperative and that kind of thing, which are more complex questions, but we're keen to answer.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.